They stood in a vast garden of shadows, where spectral figures drifted ancient advisors of King Velen, their voices a chorus of regret and power. Ellis guided Alina to a fractured memory, a vision of the king alone in his throne room, surrounded by silence and fading glory. His eyes, piercing and haunted, met hers across time. He was lonely, Ellis whispered. His cruelty was born from fear and failure. You share more with him than you know. Alina's heart pounded as empathy and fear tangled within her. The king's solitude mirrored her own isolation, yet she refused to surrender to it. I will not become him, she vowed. The dreamscape dissolved, leaving her breathless beneath the canopy of flowering vines. The tyrant's voice surged inside her, a storm of demands and memories. She grasped the flower tightly, grounding herself in the jungle's vibrant life. This ends with me, she whispered, eyes shining with determination. I choose who I am. Yet as the night deepened, the threads around her frayed further, and the battle for her soul was far from over. In the quiet aftermath, a single petal drifted to the floor, a fragile promise of the war within and the hope that still flickered amidst the shadows. The rare blossom, cradled gently in her palm, pulsed faintly, its petals glowing with a soft inner light that seemed to breathe with secrets. She reached for her knife, the blade shimmering under the bioluminescent fungi that clung to the walls like stars fallen into the jungle's embrace. With meticulous care, she sliced a petal away, exposing the delicate veins within. What she saw made her breath catch. The veins were not merely channels of sap, but intricate filaments, shimmering with iridescent hues that shifted and danced like liquid light. As her eyes adjusted, faint images flickered within those delicate strands, whispers of faces, fragments of voices, shreds of memories caught and preserved in a botanical web. It was as if the flower had grown not just from soil and water, but from the very essence of the past itself. Alina's heart pounded with a mixture of awe and a creeping sense of dread. This was no ordinary plant. It was a living archive, a garden of remembrance, weaving the intangible into the tangible. She recalled the stories whispered by Sori, the village elder, of plants that could hold history in their roots and petals. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. A fusion of life and memory that transcended the limits of science and magic. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her journal, hurriedly sketching the intricate patterns she glimpsed within the petal's veins. The realization dawned heavy and profound. Memories here were not just stored, they were alive, growing and shifting as part of the flower's very being. The implications were staggering. To hold this flower was to hold history itself, to wield the power to preserve or manipulate the past in ways no one had dared before. A sudden rustle at the open window broke her reverie. Morrow stepped in, his sun-tanned face shadowed with concern. "Alina," he said quietly, closing the door behind him, "the markets grow restless. Word spreads of your discovery. Factions from all corners of the empire are moving, hungry for the flower." She looked up, green eyes meeting his steady gaze. "I know, but there's more. The flower, it's alive with memories, not just magic. The past isn't just recorded here, it's intertwined with the plant's very life." Morrow's brows furrowed. That kind of power, it could change everything, or destroy it all. Alina nodded, the weight of her responsibility pressing down like the humid jungle air. "I must understand it fully, and decide how it should be used." Later, under the silver light of the moon, Ellis emerged from the shadows, her hair flowing like woven silver vines. "Come," she whispered, "I will show you the garden where memory and life dance as one." Together, they slipped into the dreamscape, a realm where reality blurred with reverie. Their flowers bloomed with faces ancient souls, captured in petals that whispered secrets on the breeze. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and forgotten tears. Alina reached out, touching a blossom that hummed with the voice of a long-lost child, her laughter echoing softly like wind through leaves. "This is what you hold," Ellis said, "a garden of souls, a place where memory is not forgotten but lives, breathes, and waits." The beauty was overwhelming, but so too was the haunting knowledge that such power could be a curse. Could she protect this fragile balance? Could the empire endure if its past was no longer buried but intertwined with the living present? As dawn crept over the jungle canopy, Alina found herself alone beneath the great trees, the flower resting softly in her lap. The chorus of cicadas and distant calls of exotic birds faded into a solemn silence. Her mind wrestled with the ethical tempest, swirling within her a question of stewardship or dominion, of healing or harm. The garden's heart beat in rhythm with her own, a living symbol of memory's fragile power. And Alina knew the path ahead would demand not only knowledge and courage, but a reckoning with the very soul of the empire. Her fingers brushed a petal, and the whisper of the forgotten king stirred faintly. A reminder that the past was never truly gone and that the future depended on the choices she would make. The jungle held its breath, awaiting her next move. Alina Tar moved cautiously, her boots silent against the mossy earth. Beside her, Morrow's steady presence was a balm against the tightening grip of anxiety that had settled into her chest over the past days. "They're watching," Morrow murmured, eyes scanning the twisting vines and gnarled roots as if the very forest might betray them. Alina nodded, clutching the delicate flower wrapped carefully in a cloth at her side. The petals shimmered faintly, as if aware of the danger lurking in the empire's tangled politics. "I can feel it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The factions are closing in, but I don't know who's truly after it." Morrow's gaze hardened. Doran's been seen in the memory markets again. His reach is longer than we thought. The memory market was a chaotic heart of the empire's economy, a sprawling maze of stalls and shadowed alcoves where memories were bought and sold like precious jewels. It was a place where trust was scarce and betrayal often bloomed like poisonous flowers. That evening, under the flickering light of hanging lanterns shaped like blossoms, Alina and Morrow entered the market. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices and the faint, eerie hum of traded memories, fragments of joy, pain, love, and loss, swirling invisibly among the crowd. Ellis awaited them in a secluded corner, her silver hair glowing softly in the dimness, petals woven into her cloak fluttering with each subtle movement. "The flower reacts," Ellis said, her voice a melodic whisper as she reached out, tracing ancient sigils in the air above the petals. "Its power is awakening. We must be vigilant." Alina watched as the flower pulsed gently, a living nexus of memory and magic. The Dreamwalker's chants seemed to weave a protective aura. But even Ellis's formidable presence could not mask the growing unease threading through the market. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the crowd. Doran's sharp eyes locked onto Alina, a predator's smile curling his lips. With a subtle signal, figures cloaked in the garb of memory traders began to converge, their footsteps muffled but purposeful. "We need to leave," Morrow hissed, grabbing Alina's arm. But the market's labyrinthine paths seemed to close in around them, every alleyway a potential trap. Retreat turned into a tense dance of evasion, the trio slipping through narrow corridors, the whispered calls of their pursuers growing louder. The jungle's night air pressed close, thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, both beautiful and deadly. Back in the safety of a hidden grove, Alina's relief was short-lived. A trusted ally, whose face she had seen since childhood, approached with hesitant steps. "Alina," the voice was soft, almost pleading. "There are forces you don't understand. The flowers, power. It must be controlled." Her heart faltered as the words unfolded into confession of betrayal that sliced through her like a cold wind. The allies' allegiance lay with those seeking to harness the flower's power for domination, not healing. "Why?" Alina's voice cracked. "After all we've been through." The alley's eyes, once warm, now shimmered with cold calculation. "The empire must be forged anew. Sometimes, past cruelty is necessary for future strength." As petals drifted silently to the soil beneath them, Alina felt the weight of the empire's shadows pressing in. The flower's glow dimmed, reflecting the fracture of trust that now threatened to unravel everything. Yet within the depths of despair, a spark of resolve ignited. She would not allow the past to be weaponized again. The flowering future of the jungle empire depended on her courage and discernment. "We move forward," Alina declared, eyes blazing with determination. "Together or not at all." The night whispered around them, carrying the scent of blossoms and betrayal, and the promise of battles yet to come. The rare flower, nestled beside her, seemed to hum with a subtle energy, its petals quivering like the wings of a restless bird. Guided by Ellis's whispered incantations, Alina closed her eyes and let the dreamscape fold around her endless expanse where past and present wove together, beneath a sky blooming with stars like fragile blossoms. She stepped into the dream with cautious reverence, the vibrant greens of the jungle melting into the cold marble and shadowed corridors of a palace. But this was no ordinary palace. Its walls seemed to pulse with the slow decay of withering flowers, petals drifting down like snowflakes, each petal a whisper of sorrow and loss. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and crushed blossoms, and faint voices echoed murmurs of lament, accusations, and fleeting hope. Alina moved through the halls, her senses heightened. She could hear the faint rustle of silk, the distant clang of a ceremonial bell, the soft sobbing of a man burdened by memories too heavy for any crown. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, King Velen, the forgotten tyrant, manifest in form both regal and broken. His presence was striking, woven from petals and shadows, his eyes piercing yet clouded with a haunted vulnerability that unsettled Alina's heart. "Why do you come?" he asked, his voice a fragile thread of sound, trembling with an unspoken pain. "To condemn me, to seize my power." Alina swallowed, the weight of his gaze pressing upon her. "I came seeking truth," she said softly, "not to wield power, but to understand." Velen's form flickered, shifting between the grandeur of a sovereign and the fragile decay of a fallen man. "I was once a king," he murmured, "a ruler who forged unity through fear and iron will. Yet I fell betrayed, not only by others, but by my own ambition." Ellis appeared beside Alina, her silver-vined hair glowing faintly in this spectral realm. "Look," she urged, gesturing toward a garden beyond the palace walls, where ghostly petals bloomed in ethereal light. Together, they moved through this garden of memories, each bloom revealing a shard of Velen's past, moments of tenderness with his people, flashes of doubt and regret, the heavy silence after bloodshed. Alina's heart ached as she witnessed the man behind the tyrant, a soul trapped between cruelty and compassion, haunted by the very legacy he left behind. One memory lingered, longer a vision of Velen seated alone beneath a massive tree, the crown beside him fractured and tarnished. Petals drifted down like tears as he whispered a lament to the wind, mourning a future lost to his own making. The dream began to fade, the garden dissolving into mist. And Alina awoke with a start, the flower's petals gently opening beside her. Her mind swirled with new understanding. The tyrant was not merely a monster to be destroyed, but a complex spirit whose regrets could teach the empire herself about the delicate balance of power and redemption. As dawn crept through her window, Alina resolved to embrace this revelation. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and political intrigue, but she now carried a seed of compassion that might blossom into healing. With the flower's mysterious power and the memories it held, she would strive not for domination, but for reconciliation. The empire's future hung in the balance, and Alina knew that understanding the lament of a forgotten king was the first step toward shaping a world where memory was not a weapon, but a bridge. And as the morning light kissed the petals, a quiet hope stirred within her, a fragile promise that even in the shadow of tyranny, renewal was possible. Outside, the jungle thrummed with the chorus of cicadas and distant calls of nightbirds. But inside, a different kind of storm brewed. The rare flower sat on the wooden table before her, its petals slowly unfurling in the dim light cast by flickering oil lamps. A faint luminescence radiated from within the blossom, casting twisting shadows across the walls, shadows that seemed to move with purpose and intent. Alina's green eyes, sharp and reflective like the jungle canopy, remained fixed on the flower. She felt Aitan's unsettling presence pressing against the edges of her consciousness, whispering in tones both commanding and seductive. The spirit of King Velen, the forgotten tyrant, was stirring once more, his voice threading through the petals like a dark vine. "You cannot deny me forever, Alina," the voice murmured, low and resonant. "You hold my legacy, my power. Together we could reshape this empire." Her breath caught in her throat, fingers trembling as she reached out to touch the flower's glowing petals. The contact sent a shiver through her, both terrifying and intoxicating. She closed her eyes, summoning every ounce of her botanical knowledge and the lessons Ellis had imparted about floral magic. The flower was not merely a vessel, it was a conduit, a bridge between past and present, life and memory. Suddenly, the room shifted, colors bleeding and warping as Alina was pulled into the dreamscape, the surreal realm where memories and reality entwined. The jungle around her dissolved into a tapestry of shifting petals and shadowy figures. At its center stood Velen, his form regal yet warped, woven from petals and shadows, eyes like burning embers that pierced through the dream's mists. "Why resist what is inevitable?" Velen's voice echoed, both a command and a plea. "Embrace me, and power will be yours." Alina steadied herself, feeling the oppressive weight of his presence trying to drown her will. Her hands moved instinctively, weaving gestures learned from Ellis's teachings. Soft chants escaped her lips as tendrils of floral magic unfurled, wrapping around her like a protective cloak. Petals blossomed mid-air, their scent sharp and sweet, grounding her to her own essence. From the periphery, Ellis appeared, pale and ethereal, her silver vine hair flowing like liquid moonlight. She began a counterchant, her voice a soothing balm that wove through the dreamscape, reinforcing Alina's shield. Nearby, Morrow's steady presence was a tether to the physical world, his carved talisman glowing faintly in the dream's haze. Velen's figure flickered, his menace wavering under the combined strength of Alina and her allies. The tyrant's memories surged visions of his brutal conquest, the anguish of those he ruled, his own haunted regrets, but Alina met each with empathy and defiance. She refused to be consumed. "You are not my prisoner," she declared, voice steady despite the tempest inside her. "I carry your memories, but I am not your vessel." The dreamscape trembled as Velen's form recoiled, petals dissolving into gentle blossoms carried away by an unseen breeze. The flower's glow softened, no longer a beacon of oppression but a quiet light of possibility. Back in her laboratory, Alina opened her eyes, heart pounding but spirit unbroken. The battle had been fierce, but she had held her ground. The tyrant's spirit was not vanquished, lingered still, but so did her resolve. She turned to Ellis, who nodded with a serene smile, and then to Morrow, who let out a relieved breath. Together, they had crossed the Petals' edge, stepping into a new chapter where power would no longer mean domination but understanding. Yet, as Alina looked once more at the flower, now resting calmly in its pot, she knew this was only the beginning. The struggle for memory, identity, and the soul of the Empire was far from over. But for the first time, she felt ready to face whatever would come, armed with knowledge, magic, and an unyielding heart. The jungle outside whispered on, its secrets waiting to unfold like petals in the dawn. Alina sat cross-legged on a woven mat, her fingers tracing the delicate fibers of ancient scrolls spread before her. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the walls, where faded tapestries depicted scenes of the jungle empire's long-forgotten past. Sari's voice, low and steady, wove through the dim room like a solemn hymn. "Velen was not merely a tyrant," she said, her eyes clouded with memories. "He was a man torn between vision and cruelty. His unification of the tribes was born of fierce determination, but betrayal was the seed that shattered his crown." Alina listened intently, the weight of those words settling deep within her chest. The flower in her possession pulsed faintly, as if echoing the elder's sorrow. She had long known Valon's memory was complex, but today she glimpsed the fractures beneath his legend. "Tell me," Alina urged gently, "what betrayed him?" Sari sighed, fingers tracing a faded illustration of a crown entwined with thorns. Those closest to him, his council, his generals feared his growing power. They conspired in shadows, and in the end, he was abandoned in the very jungle he sought to command. The revelation struck Alina with a strange familiarity. She too felt the sting of isolation, the burden of a power not fully hers, yet impossible to relinquish. Her gaze dropped to the flower, its petals trembling ever so slightly. Days later, standing amidst the jungle ruins where Valon's reign had crumbled, Alina breathed in the heavy scent of moss and blossoms. The broken stones, overgrown with vines and speckled with flowers, whispered secrets long buried. A gust of wind stirred the leaves at her feet, carrying faint echoes of power and regret. She closed her eyes, imagining the crown once gleaming atop Velen's head, now just fragments beneath the jungle's reclaiming arms. "What does it mean for me?" she whispered, the question hanging in the humid air. Before she could dwell further, the bustling cacophony of the memory market pulled her back to the present. Morrow's voice cut through the clamor as he grabbed her arm, his eyes sharp. "Alina, you must be cautious. Factions are stirring, their eyes on the flower. This is more than history, now it's a battleground." The scent of exotic spices mingled with the tension as traders eyed her with suspicion and greed. Morrow's carved wooden talisman caught the fading light, a symbol of protection in a world where memories were weapons. That night, beneath a canopy of blooming petals in her private garden, Alina sought solace. The air was thick with floral fragrance, wrapping around her like a bomb. She closed her eyes, the soft rustle of leaves sinking with her steady breath. The intertwined legacies of Velen and herself unfurled within her mind, pain and hope, destruction and renewal. She opened her eyes with a clarity that surprised her. The broken crown was not just a symbol of loss, but a call to mend what was fractured. As guardian of memory and life, she would bridge the chasms of the past and guide the Empire toward a future where shadows and light could coexist. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Alina felt the stirrings of purpose strong enough to withstand even the darkest memories. And as the petals around her shimmered softly in the moonlight, she knew the true test was yet to come. The night was far from over, and the Empire's secrets still whispered through the leaves. In a small clearing dappled with sunlight, Alina stood between Morrow and Ellis, the rare flower cradled gently in her hands. The petals, a delicate swirl of crimson and violet, pulsed faintly, as if alive, a heartbeat in the lush silence. "We cannot afford hesitation anymore," Alina said, her voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty within. "The flower's power is not just a weapon, it's a legacy. We must choose how to wield it." Her green eyes, reflecting the vibrant jungle around them, met Morrow's steady gaze first. Morrow shifted his weight, the carved wooden talisman at his neck catching the light. "I've seen what happens when power falls into the wrong hands. The memory traders grow bolder each day. If we don't act now, they'll take the flower and twist its memories into chains." His tone was pragmatic, but carried an unspoken bond, a promise to stand by Alina through whatever came. Ellis's pale fingers brushed a petal, her silver-vined hair cascading softly as she spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from somewhere beyond the clearing. "The dreamscapes show me paths, but they are fraught with shadows. To heal, we must first understand the depth of the wound. King Velen's memories are dark, but not without truth. If we bind them with care, we can weave a future that honors the past without repeating it." Alina nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her like a mantle. "Then we start today. We'll combine our knowledge, my botanical lore, Morrow's understanding of the Empire's undercurrents, and Ellis's dreamwalking to unlock the flower's full potential. Not for control, but for healing." The flower's glow intensified, its petals unfurling slowly, releasing a shimmer of light that danced like fireflies in the humid air. Alina reached out, channeling her botanical magic, and delicate threads of luminescent energy wove from the bloom, intertwining with the jungle's verdant canopy. The air hummed with possibility, a fragile promise of renewal. Morrow exhaled deeply, the tension in his broad shoulders easing slightly. "You carry more than just a flower, Alina. You carry the hope of all who have been silenced by forgetting. And the risk," she replied softly. "But I won't let that stop us." Ellis stepped closer, her eyes shimmering like moonlit petals. "Tonight, I will take you deeper into the dreamscape. There, we will seek the heart of the flower's magic and the Empire's future." As twilight deepened, the trio prepared for the journey ahead, bound by a blooming resolve that would challenge the shadows creeping ever closer. In the jungle's embrace, beneath the watchful eyes of ancient trees, Alina felt a stirring within, a cautious hope that even the darkest memories could be transformed when tended with care. The night was thick with whispers, but for the first time in a long time, those whispers spoke not only of fear, but of possibility. The path forward was uncertain, but Alina's heart steeled itself for the trials to come. The flower's petals had begun to open, and with them, a new chapter for the Empire was ready to unfold. As the first stars blinked awake above, Alina caught Morrow's steady gaze and Ellis's serene smile. knowing that together they would face whatever darkness awaited, not as mere survivors, but as guardians of a fragile, blossoming hope. And somewhere,